Welcome to another edition of Cambridge Inside Out. My name's Robert Winters.
I'm Judy Nathans.
And today's April 5th, 2016.
That's right.
And let's see, so what do we got going on around town today?
Oh, around town?
Or in Cleveland?
In Cleveland, they won, yes? Yeah.
So today was opening day for...
Well, it was yesterday, but they were snowed out or rained out. Yeah.
So the Red Sox won 6-2, I believe.
Ooh, that's
home runs
good, yeah.
by Mookie Betts and David Ortiz in the night.
Oh, wow. And I heard something about 10 strikeouts for Price.
David Price struck out 10. I think he went about 6 innings, struck out 10.
Is it about like $10,000 per pitch or something?
Oh, you
based
really...
on his $278 million contract over 7 years. It's the part about sports I don't like, even though I love it. Yeah.
So let's see, what shall we talk about today? Right, there's the question.
Yeah, well, both of us went to Envision Cambridge meetings, public meetings, so that I think is
I think that's a pretty good way to start. So the Envision Cambridge is
maybe you could
so there was...
define that.
I guess it was almost 2 years ago now, actually. There were city council orders calling for the city to develop a master plan. And by the time late last year rolled around, it finally translated into a group called UTEAL.
They are the consultants.
Right, they are the consultants to work with the city and residents in order to do just general citywide planning. Or maybe it's better to say revisions to the existing plans.
Yeah, can you explain that? So is this then instead of the master plan, or is that going ahead, or is that still in existence somewhere in a back drawer?
I mean, the way the city says it, and I think the city is quite correct about it. First off, Cambridge, because it has a planning department, is not obliged to, under any state provisions at all, to have any master plan in place. But they effectively do in the form of what is probably the most detailed and prescriptive zoning code in the state. In
the state?
I would be amazed if there was any city elsewhere in the state who had as detailed a zoning code as we do. Also, there are neighborhood by neighborhood, there are neighborhood plans, which the community development department uses to implement things. Over the years, there have been individual studies for zones where development was expected, like North Point. There was the ECAP studies for East Cambridge some 10 years ago or thereabouts. There have been other studies, the University Park development, which is to my right right now.
And what about Fresh Pond? Because I'm getting to appreciate a little more about that end of Cambridge and why there's some concerns. They
had plenty of studies for what they call the Concord Alewife study, which is there's the triangle and quadrangle areas that are just west of the Fresh Pond Parkway.
Which is still Cambridge. That's what's sort of odd. I
think a lot of the focus was on what I guess most people would think of as areas that are ripe for possible future development, so that there would be some sort of plans in place should that development happen.
Is that where like the train tracks go under, or behind Alewife?
Yeah, the commuter rail basically divides. It's like the Mason-Dixon line on the north side of the tracks is what they call the triangle.
Oh, okay.
And the south side between the railroad tracks and Fresh Pond and Concord Avenue is what they call the quadrangle. So we did this whole Concord Alewife study that within the past decade, or maybe, I should say within the last decade, laid out a lot of detailed plans, some of which are kind of getting put into place, some of which are happening. Some people were outraged because some of the things that they anticipated happening and planned on happening were happening too quickly.
Like what?
Housing development. So there was a big change in the post-rent control world where the city wanted to encourage housing development, and they certainly wanted to incentivize housing development over commercial development. Prior to those changes, the more likely things you might have expected to see
would be commercial or corporations building.
Saw offices and labs are the kind of things
which you do have on some of it.
Yeah, if you go on Cambridge Park Drive, the buildings that were built first, with that you were not seeing any housing.
Exactly.
So they changed some of the rules to encourage housing. Housing started getting developed, and then people started going, "Oh my God, they're building housing."
How old is Alewife, the station there?
The station is with the Red Line extensions, so that dates to about 1985. 1985.
So were these plans made in anticipation of that station?
There was actually a previous study that most people lovingly call the Fish Book because of the alewives that graced the cover.
Right.
I actually have 2 copies of it.
Wow.
Collector's items.
That I'd like to see.
It actually has
Show
some
that.
really great ideas, some of which were put into place, and some of which I think still were great ideas, but were never put into place.
So did Cambridge have any control over the placement of that? I mean, it is not run by the city, right?
The city doesn't own it. The city doesn't do the development for the most part. So all the city can really do, and that's really what planning is about, is laying down rules and zoning codes so that.
You mean in general around that? I meant Alewife itself.
Yeah, well, so
they were consulted about its siting, but not.
Well, I think it's rare. Rare is the case that a developer builds a project where they don't have to have some
any
kind of
input.
involvement,
Right.
because oftentimes the way
Yes.
things are written, it is beneficial for the developer
Right.
to write it under utilizing
Right.
special permit criteria.
Right.
And the whole idea of special permit processes are not to block people from building things, but to give the city a hand in it, so that they say, well, we'll give you an extra floor or a little extra density.
It's a negotiation process.
Yeah, it actually encourages something of a more of a negotiated arrangement, so you get better public benefit for it.
So now there's a complaint about too much housing going up, or is it the density or the heights? Or?
I would put it this way, I'd say
Yeah.
there were complaints from some people
Okay.
about housing being developed in and around Alewife. You are not going to hear me complaining about the development of housing there, because
Well, you don't live there either.
well, building housing near public transit is really the best
True.
place to do it. The only misgivings I had really about housing development around Alewife was that it's sort of like a giant cul-de-sac in that, there's basically, you go in on Cambridge Park Drive and you can't come out the
Get
other
out.
end.
No, it's very.
And
true.
and where you get in is already a kind of a crowded, busy road with a lot of pass-through traffic of commuters coming in from Lexington.
Well, that's the other complaint, is that it's such a pass-through place that.
But that's something that city
Yeah.
planning can't really take a
I
dent
know.
into it. So
Yeah.
So anyway, I think that there are some better things that can happen, and actually part of this Envision Cambridge process includes an upfront component which is specific to Alewife. Squeaky wheel gets the most.
Yes, I saw
right?
that, which makes sense, I guess.
Well, I don't mind it.
Yeah,
So
it seems to be an area that does need a little. I mean, Kendall, it seems like be taking off on its own.
It's definitely on its own. Yeah.
Right, and that seems to be the other end of Cambridge that also is facing some issues there with.
Yeah, I mean,
heights and-
that said, I certainly don't resent it, but I do see it as political accommodation primarily. I mean, some of us who are Central Square advocates have often pointed out that, there was a lot of planning went into, possible modifications in the Central Square zone, and all that just got put on the back burner, and Alewife got pushed way forward. So, it's politics, but hey, politics is part of what we do, right?
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
live with it, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
So anyway,
So the Envision.
the Envision Cambridge there's really kind of 3 groupings.
Okay.
One is the upfront piece, which is specific to Alewife. Another part is this committee that's apparently been appointed, that is to look at sort of the whole citywide issues.
I know you know that because you got a letter.
I got a letter. I'm proud to say.
Good. When's the first meeting?
I think it'll be in sometime later in May, I believe. But I was really happy to do that. I don't know how many more of these big processes I got in me, but this is one I really kind of wanted. So, it's coming up, and I'm looking forward to it. Now,
So all right. So that was.
so that's sort of the formal process to follow. I think that, and that's kind of an advisory committee to the whole process. So I think we'll sort
Which
of
is
vet
really
ideas.
quite long. I was surprised at that. It's like they're not even going to come up with anything tangible till year 3 or something.
Well, actually,
What's that about?
this was part of the discussions this past year when, some people were saying, oh, you're stalling, it's going to take forever, and now you're telling it's going to take another 2.5, 3 years.
Yeah.
I think some people needed to emphasize, and did, that in fact, this doesn't preclude other things from happening simultaneously.
Okay.
I do know, or I shall assert with authority,
All right.
that some of the people who wanted to promote the master plan thing 2 years ago wanted very much there to be a moratorium on all new development in the city, or
All new development?
Well, or at least all new development over a certain scale.
And height. Okay, yeah.
So they were, in many respects, using this whole master plan thing as kind of a red herring, I think, for an agenda which was really a little bit different from that. So that's why it was important to emphasize that having a citywide planning process, what evolved into what they're calling Envision Cambridge, does not preclude good things from moving forward. I mean, if somebody wanted to, like for example, at City Council meeting on Monday, there was yet another zoning petition filed.
Yes, I was maybe the one in Riverside.
In Riverside neighborhood.
I know the person actually that filed it.
Yeah.
Or that spoke in public comment.
So it's some might have thought that, well, we're doing a big citywide process, so you're not allowed to file zoning petitions, you're not allowed to build things until we figure it all out.
But they're still taking them, right?
Well, the thing is you'll never figure it all out, and even at the end of a
someone's
full
always going to say
process.
this affects me. I need to do something about it.
I mean, Councilor Carlone has certainly pointed out, as of others, that zoning is kind of it's an organic document. It continues, it evolves. Master plans are not set in stone. They are sort of a good snapshot of the way things are or should ideally be today, but things keep changing. And the other thing too is keep in mind is that money's cheap right now. So if you wanted to, even if you wanted to just do something as simple as build an addition on your home.
Cheap meaning the interest rates are low?
Yeah, it's really inexpensive to borrow money right now. So now if you want to be if you have a property in the middle of Central Square or Harvard Square or Alewife, there's really, in many respects, no time like now to actually do the renovations or expansion or modifications that you might have thought of.
But it was interesting. I also heard Patrick Barrett speak to public comment about that he can't do what he wants at the property he owns because there's so many variances and so many things he'd have to do to make it residential or something.
I don't want to put words in Patrick's mouth here, but what I would say is, he basically, he owns a property I'm looking at right now.
Where Toscanini's is.
Which is, he's not in any way proposing, 20-story buildings or anything like that. He's doing modest things. So
what's the problem? Why is...
There are pretty strict still,
Is that
limits.
because of the zoning there? It's commercial or...
Patrick would probably make the case better than I that if the city wants to encourage residential uses in and around a place like Central Square, the way the code's written right now, there's no benefit in doing it.
Right, because he said it would take him so long to go through all the hurdles.
The process would be all variance and you might not even get it. And so the incentives are all stacked toward doing things other than residential.
Aren't those apartments anyway above the...
Oh yeah, Patrick could leave his buildings as is, and at least he would have apartments. But he's gone through essentially a non. I don't think he needs any permits for what he's proposing, but I think he would have liked to have.
He obviously something that
he's turning into a nice little hotel. But
a hotel.
I think he would have liked to have done things a little bit more.
That's the key. You're right. I knew there was something about it. He wanted to make it a hotel.
Yeah.
Which would take away. Residences, so
yeah, but if you had another commercial property right in the middle of Central Square and you wanted to do you wanted to turn it into residential, in order to make it financially feasible, honestly, you pretty much have to go like Mass and Maine did and go for the really super big one and a zoning change.
So in other words, it's more expensive to build residential housing than it would be to build a hotel?
You can make a lot more money. Actually, ideally,
you could charge $300 a night or something.
It's
a good point.
I think the best, if you're a property owner, your best financial deal is to encourage people to come and do labs and things.
Yeah, you're right. So, all right, I'm glad you cleared that up. I understand a little better.
So anyway, there's these three components to the Envision Cambridge. There's an outreach group, which I didn't mention yet.
So is that different than what we went to, or what do you mean the outreach group?
I'm not quite sure what that's going to evolve into, but one of the concerns a lot of people have had is that, and I think it's a very valid concern, is that whenever you do any kind of planning processes such as this, it's as some people jokingly say, it's the usual suspects show up.
Oh, I love that word. Yeah.
Right. And if you really want to get a good sense, you don't want to just have the advocates for this or the opponents of that to be the only voices.
Right.
But it is devilishly difficult in this city to get all voices to come out and participate. There are a lot of reasons people may suggest why that is the case. The relative scarcity of local media. So it's not like, you get the word out and then everybody in town knows anything.
No. I don't know. It was on your site. It was on others. I don't know
So
if
there's
it
a
was
couple of
at
thousand
libraries. Yeah. I mean, they
Right.
did. If you did it ahead of time, they would have provided childcare. I mean, I thought they were very attentive.
No,
but-
I'm saying is that the
Yeah.
Envision Cambridge people are doing it as well as anyone can.
Right. You're just saying overall. Yeah.
And I think that's really a piece of what this outreach group will
Yeah.
be a part of as well. I'm thrilled, honestly, to be part of the advisory
it's great.
committee of this. And I
Nice.
think, and I have every intention of bringing some representation for, people from Central Square. But I don't want to just
Yes.
be the representative from
No.
one place or
I
one
circled
interest.
that on my map. You had to turn. I circled that, and because they had this elaborate 3D, dimensional kind of map, and it's very
Yeah.
color in thing. This is confusing. I didn't like that part.
Right.
So I said, I'm just going to circle on the map that I think Central Square needs more attention.
Actually, if you look there, because they were
Yeah.
actually, at the end of each time they put that out, they photograph sections of it and then they show up in the report. So if you see a photo anywhere down the road,
You did, yeah.
you'll see mine. I'm the guy who wrote, now I think twice, two different
Yeah, 'cause you
documents.
could
I wrote-
write on it,
I
too.
just wrote simply, Central Square needs more love.
Oh, okay, great. Well, I did something like that, but
Yeah. I mean, honestly,
Yeah.
I'm a big advocate for Central
Yeah.
Square, but I'm not going to in any way say this is what must happen here or this
Yeah.
is what must not happen here. I'm pretty open-minded about it. I just
Mm-hmm.
I want to see some good things happen.
were you did
all.
you know that George Metzger spoke on behalf of that?
I-
Were you there? Did you see
He
the-
was at City Council meeting speaking on behalf
of
of.
Central? He wanted more money or something for the advisory committee, the one that you serve on?
I think that might actually be an outgrowth of a comment I may have made, which
Yeah, it
is.
sounded like it to
Well,
me.
the thing is
It's pretty forceful.
I was going to get that later, but let's talk about legal
Yeah, why
now.
not?
One of the items on the City Council agenda from the previous meeting.
Should have been 2
Oh,
weeks
no,
ago.
actually, come to think of it, this was for this meeting. This was a call for the city to implement the non-zoning recommendations of the C2 committee. That was C2 of the K2 C2 process. And my comment to that, when I wrote up on Cambridge
Yeah.
Civic Journal, was that yeah, great, let's start moving on it, but people should at least be aware that these recommendations were not all, some were very specific, some were sort of general, and some of them, in my opinion, needed a lot more work.
Yeah.
But so what happened was, I don't know, it's not like they changed the zoning code to give to change the definition of the existing Central Square Advisory Committee, on which I sit.
Right.
But basically, the decision was made to bring the non-zoning recommendations before the Central Square Advisory Committee so that they could vet them to some degree, maybe refine and work out some actual details and specific proposals. So, for in other words, if somebody says, well, we need more, just to give an example, we need to have more food trucks or mobile vendors in around Central
Right.
Square. Well, that's a pretty general statement.
Right.
Where would you like to put them, sir?
Right. Yeah.
Right? There's also problems in that the License Commission has certain rules saying that you can't operate such things within 100 or 300 feet of
An
a
existing
brick and mortar
restaurant.
restaurant. All right, so should some of those things change? So
Right. Yeah,
the point I'm
please.
making here is simply
Yeah.
that you can't just implement things
Right.
when there are some
course.
things that still
Whole
need to be
process,
discussed. But the problem is that it sort of goes under the category of retirements. Is
Yeah.
that the staff person who's associated with Central Square Advisory Committee for as long as I can remember was
Yeah.
Elaine Thorne.
Yeah, I was wondering who that was. That's the only name I didn't know.
Yeah, so Elaine,
so she's
she
leaving.
retired about maybe a month or two ago. So we have some other staff have been kind of filling in with the Central Square Advisory Committee, but honestly, it hasn't really begun meeting regularly yet.
So was that what he was referring to?
yeah,
Because
that's
he did
what- that's what he's
use the
referring
word
to.
resources.
I'm pretty
Okay.
sure that's what he was
All right.
referring to.
All right.
And I think the Central Square Advisory Committee should definitely take on the challenge. And as I've said within that committee and elsewhere, I said, I really view the Central Square Advisory Committee as more of a facilitation body. We should be basically bringing in public testimony, public suggestions, taking city recommendations, and
Yeah, it's an advisory committee, yes.
yeah. So we should sort of gather them all and then hand our recommendations and suggestions to either City Council if that's where the appropriate place is, or the Community Development Department, or the Planning Board, or Traffic and Parking, whatever it takes.
Yeah.
So I think that's really what that was all about, and
Okay.
sort of a good thing.
Good.
Yeah.
So getting back to then, because we could talk maybe in a second more about some of the things that came up at the City Council, which I found interesting.
Yeah.
since
Well, so let's go how about a little bit more on Envision Cambridge?
That's what I'm saying. We should go back
So
to
some of the
that, yeah.
specifics. Now I don't know about you. Went to the one on Thursday.
I went to the one on
right?
Thursday that was at the Tobin School.
And I went to the one at the Senior Center on
Saturday.
Yeah.
Which I would have
Right.
assumed would have been more well attended, but
Yeah.
I mean, there were at least 60, 65 people at the one.
Yeah, I couldn't put an exact number to it. I would put it about 50 at the one I was at, and a lot of familiar faces, but also thankfully a lot of unfamiliar faces. So that's a good thing.
Would you say it was diverse in terms of incomes?
I didn't ask.
Not asked, but were they homeowners? Were they renters?
I'm gonna guess and say
Yeah.
we actually had a mix.
Yeah.
The only reason I can say that for
Yeah.
sure is that. I think, and I don't know how they did
Yeah.
it the one you were at, but there were these sort of various topics,
Right.
and you
put your yellow dot.
You
I
give you
told
two
you
yellow
that, yeah.
dots, and you put
There
them
are
up
like
on
8
a,
topics, or 7.
yeah. So you put them on there, and then they apportion these tables accordingly. So if there,
Right.
I think in ours there were so many dots on the housing.
Ours too. So they had actually
split it to two.
kind of
We
sections,
had
and yeah,
2 tables on
2
housing.
30 minutes on housing.
Yeah.
And some were split, like
Yeah.
economics, and then mobility was
We had
split.
the
on
same
my-
split in
Interesting.
ours, yeah.
What was the other? I was trying to remember what the other highest one was. It urban?
There was urban form.
Urban form.
Which, it's funny because I think if you're in the business, all
Yeah.
these words have meaning. If you're
Right.
not in the business,
Yeah.
you might not actually know.
Maybe it
what
was
these words mean.
transportation. Yeah, I forget.
Well,
there was a
here's-
second one that had a
I would
lot.
say I put my little yellow dots on housing
Me too.
and regionalism.
Oh, region.
Those
I
were
put
my
mine
two.
on economics and then maybe it was no, I don't know if it was
Yeah.
housing.
But the thing is, I was very tempted to go to the one on mobility, and the reason for
Yeah.
that is that I'm always sort of
Yes.
trying to be a
Yes.
balancing guy,
Yeah.
to be sort of provide the ballast to
Right.
sort of keep
Right.
things a little more even, Steven.
Right.
And inevitably, if you have something on transportation, well, it's one thing if it's automobile transportation, but if you call it mobility,
Bicycles, walking.
I think
Yeah.
people who have interest in cycling infrastructure tend to be drawn to those.
Yeah.
And then you end up where they're pretty much
pedestrians.
the only ones there. And then they come out, and it makes
Yeah.
it sound as though the meeting came to conclusions based on
Right.
what a few advocates of one side of the picture.
Yeah. Well, this is
had to
again
say.
only they bring all this together.
Yeah.
and-
So I was tempted to do that one, but instead I
Yeah.
did housing.
Okay.
And the housing is interesting.
Yeah. What was the offshoot of what you?
Well, we actually had one person who was one of the mainstays of the Alliance for Cambridge Tenants,
which the Cambridge one or the Fresh Pond?
Cambridge.
Okay.
No, these are Cambridge. These are tenants. It's a citywide organization for.
Oh, that's different
tenants.
than the Residents Alliance.
Yeah, yeah.
I'm sorry.
The
Okay.
Residents Alliance are almost all homeowners.
Well, yeah, right.
Right.
In the Fresh
But-
Pond Alliance.
yeah,
too.
yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So.
So this is what the Cambridge Tenants.
It's the Association of Cambridge Tenants Act.
Oh, good.
Right, and
Nice.
one woman who's there, who's also, I believe, a sitting member on the Affordable Housing Trust for the City of Cambridge.
Okay.
So she was on there. There were other people who were very much advocates for housing, and as tenants.
Affordable housing
Yeah.
as tenants, not
I
as
think-
owners.
Yeah, I think actually at my
Yeah.
table, I don't know that I was the only homeowner at the table, but
Let's
there may
would
have
be
been
the
another.
opposite at mine.
Really? So it was primarily tenants.
That's interesting.
and
That's good.
it was a
That's
very good discussion, I thought, and I was pretty happy about some of the things I brought up. Like, for example, the role of small property owners like myself, who actually continue to provide reasonable.
But you're unusual.
I know I'm unusual, but the thing is that if you go in places like East Cambridge, some of the most reasonable rents are some of the longtime homeowners
True.
and longtime tenants that they're sort of like
Right.
provide some of the stability.
Because they
in
basically
housing.
just own that house, like you do.
Yeah.
You don't own other
Yeah,
property.
and every time they sell,
you have another profession.
I know. But every time one
Yes.
of those people sells
Then
and
it-
a
then there
condo
goes.
developer
I
comes
know.
in, buys it,
Forget it.
flips it,
I know.
then the housing costs just accelerate in Cambridge. So another thing that I brought up very intentionally was this, and it seemed like everybody was in agreement, including the person who's in charge of the Envision thing, which was that there was this problem where there's like invisible money coming from who knows where. So they have these limited liability corporations buying up properties, I think, as just investments for people from coming from offshore.
Probably.
And they're basically, everybody sees that investing in real estate in Cambridge is a lot more stable than
Chinese, Saudi
pork
Arabia.
bellies
Yeah.
or
No,
or
it's
stocks in
we are,
China.
Yeah, that's true.
And nobody knows who the people are, and
Yep.
they're willing to pay twice as much as
Yeah.
anybody else, and it's really destabilizing the real estate, in my opinion. So, I think addressing that would be a good thing to do.
Yes.
as well.
I know we're running out of time, but I'd like to continue this because there's some interesting things that came up
Yeah,
about
you can-
housing and community and neighborhood that I thought are worth talking about because it
Yeah.
is happening in Cambridge.
Actually, one of the other topics, I don't know if they had a table at your session, the topic was called social cohesion.
Yeah, oh no, we had the same topics, civic engagement. Yeah, that was a
Yeah,
very
and-
I didn't go to that, but a lot of young people at that
Well,
one.
I'll tell you,
Interesting.
yeah, it is kind of interesting because
Yeah.
my notion of social cohesion is
Yeah.
sort of maintaining neighborhoods
Yeah.
that are basically, since everybody's buying and selling and moving
Yeah.
and all the mobility is really what's
Right.
kind of wiping out a lot of the
So what was their
cohesiveness.
definition of it? Was it
Actually, I don't know because I wasn't.
I think it has a lot to do
tuning
with
into
how
that
do
so
you
much.
get people together, and a lot of it is social media, and that's what my
That's right.
impression. Yeah.
So, anyway, we're down
Okay.
to our last few
Yeah.
seconds,
So we'll
so
continue this because
we'll be
interesting.
back in a few minutes with Cambridge Inside Out.